What's going on, guys? Victor here with a brand new video. And what a night of fights that we had yesterday. Obviously, the fight night that we were all been waiting for a while now, which was Michael Chiesa versus Neil Magny. Obviously, they definitely lived up to the hype a little bit, especially when it came to all the grappling, all the wrestling that was on display. There was a lot of work on the feet as well, so the fight was basically everywhere you really could have imagined it. But I'm not going to talk about that fight right now for this video. I'm obviously going to talk about a lot of the fighters that really stood out to me, a lot of fighters that mostly probably stuck out to you guys as well. But obviously, I'm going to talk about Chiesa and Magny in a separate video because that's what I like to do with the main events. But obviously, I'm going to talk about Warlley Alvez in the co-main event. Obviously, Warlley Alvez has been up and down. He's been losing a couple, he's been winning a couple, but he needed a fight like this. Obviously, as a co-main event in Abu Dhabi Fight Island, and a huge platform where a lot of eyes are going to be on him. And just to let you guys know, this is the only man to ever tap out Colby Covington in his whole entire mixed martial arts career. Yes, Colby Covington, the former interim welterweight champion in the UFC, also the former title challenger who took Umar Usman to the absolute limit when no one else had done it in Umar Usman's career. So Warlley Alvez is definitely one of the most underrated guys in the welterweight division. And he's definitely one of the most scariest guys as well, because as soon as that bell rang, as soon as the referee told him to fight, he opened up with a leg kick and then with a flurry of hooks that really landed some damage on Munir Lazzez. Obviously, Munir Lazzez fought Abdul Razak Al Hassan for his last fight, and obviously Abdul Razak Al Hassan was a power puncher. All of his wins were by knockout, so obviously taking a fight like that for your UFC debut was definitely taking one of the biggest risks of your whole entire career itself. So obviously Munir definitely lived up to the hype with that UFC debut, and he was able to win by unanimous decision, taking all of Abdul's best shots. So obviously Munir is the real deal, and he's facing someone such as Warlley Alvez in the second UFC stint as the co-main event, so definitely a lot of pressure put on his shoulder as well. But it was the pressure and also just the violent nature of Warlley Alvez that was really able to put on not only the pressure but also put on a lot of unexpectedness as well that was coming out from him. You know, the elbows are violent, the shots were violent. He was landing some swinging elbows as well as some swinging back fists, and his body shots. Holy smokes! The leg kicks to the body was really the finishing. It was the ending blow that really put a bow on top of Warlley Alvez's performance. He was violent. He put on a lot of pressure. He never let Munir Lazzez get a break whatsoever. He obviously did take him down during the fight. Munir was able to get back up, and Munir did land a couple good punches. Obviously, I believe he landed a spinning elbow, and that was pretty much it. You know, Munir didn't really land that much. I think he's just overwhelmed by the pressure that Warlley Alvez was bringing, and I think it was just the experience factor. Obviously, Warlley Alvez has been in the UFC for years upon years upon the years now. He's been there with the absolute best of them. And then on the other side, you got Munir, who's making his second fight in the UFC. I believe he was 10-1 going into this fight. Now he's obviously 10-2. So when you've got a fighter with a lot of experience as Warlley Alvez going up against a fighter such as Munir Lazzez, who has about 11 fights overall in this career, there's obviously going to be a disadvantage for the fighter who has the less experience. So obviously I was very impressed with Warlley Alvez, and obviously Munir Lazzez is going to be back in the future. Obviously he has a very flashy style, but he's got to go back to the drawing board and see what went wrong and how he can be able to fix those mistakes going on forward. The second fight I'm going to talk about is Matt Schnell versus Tyson Nam. Obviously, these guys are slated to fight each other for multiple times in the past, but obviously that fight fell through multiple times just because of either injuries or illnesses that were going on. But it finally went on. It finally came to fruition, and it happened here on Fight Island on Abu Dhabi. Obviously, a lot of eyes on both of these competitors themselves. Tyson Nam coming in on a 2-fight winning streak, knocking out 2 guys which was absolutely crazy. Obviously, Tyson Nam has a lot of power, and he was able to display it in those two past fights. And during those two past fights, those were only knockouts, but they were first round knockouts. So obviously, Tyson Nam barely took any damage in those two fights. So he's definitely the fresher fighter coming in. And Matt Schnell is basically coming off of a knockout loss against, I believe his name is Alejandro Pantoja. So obviously, Matt Schnell definitely wants to come in here and get that W. He wants to avenge that loss, get back into the win column. And boy, did he do that. Obviously, Tyson Nam coming off those two knockout wins, trying to go out for the knockout. And I believe he was just trying to find that one shot to put Matt Schnell away. But Matt Schnell, his speed, his evasiveness, the volume of punches that he's throwing, and the story of that fight was the combinations. Matt Schnell threw so many combinations. Obviously, he would let Tyson Nam go and try to throw whatever he was throwing, and Tyson Nam was connecting in a number of times, but obviously they weren't good enough shots to put down Matt Schnell. Matt Schnell can eat a punch. He's obviously been in wars before in the past, but Matt Schnell has been going to different gyms all around the United States of America in order to gain more experience, in order to work with different coaches, in order to work with different sparring partners, and that obviously showed last night against Tyson Nam. The combinations were crisp. The boxing was crisp. The footwork was crisp. Everything was clicking in all cylinders for Matt Schnell, and Matt Schnell is another fighter that has a lot of experience, but Tyson Nam is a fighter that has 30 plus fights, so he's the bull coming into the fight against the less experienced bull, if you know what I mean. Obviously, experience is very key, but Matt Schnell is something special. He's an individual that comes from Louisiana, and if we all know about Louisiana, there are a lot of fighters that come out through there. There's Daniel Cormier, there's Dustin Poirier, and there's also Alan Jouban as well. And now we have Matt Schnell. So a lot of great fighters coming out of Louisiana. Matt Schnell had an amazing performance. It was great, and that's why he got the split decision win. But in my opinion, I thought that should have been a unanimous decision, because I do believe that Matt Schnell won 2 out of the 3 rounds. Tyson Nam is still a very dangerous fighter. He just needs to go back and see what he did wrong and definitely get back there. Not as soon as possible. Obviously, he did take a lot of damage. He was bleeding. He was wearing a lot of that damage on his face. So he's definitely going to have to take a little bit of time off and then come back later on this year in 2021. Hopefully, by the time he does come back, we're going to have fans back. And if he does get one of those signature knockouts that he has had in the past, then a lot of people are going to go crazy for that. Another fight that I really want to talk about on this card that also really impressed me a lot, there was Mike Davis versus Mason Jones. Mike Davis, they call him Beast Boy for a reason, because he fights like a beast. The volume, the strength that he has, a lot of power shots. He's already been in there with some of the best in the UFC. His very first fight was on the Contender Series against Sadiq Youssef, which happened to be the best fight in all of Contender Series history. It was back and forth the whole entire time. And then for his UFC debut, he ends up facing none other than Gilbert Burns, and that didn't go out too well, but obviously it was a learning experience. It was a quality loss on his record. So he's going in here facing Mason Jones, who is a double champion coming off of the Cage Warriors promotion out of the UK. And if we all know about Cage Warriors, some of the best in the UFC have been through Cage Warriors. We're talking about Michael Bisping, we're talking about Conor McGregor, we're talking about Dan Hardy, we're talking about the whole 9, for crying out loud. A lot of good guys have come out of there, and Mason Jones, he came out there gunslinging, man, and so is Mike Davis. This was a matchup made in heaven. It was a back and forth fight the whole entire time. You had the leg kicks, you had the body kicks, you had the body shots. You had a lot of damage that was worn by both fighters, but a lot of damage was borne on Mason Jones's face. One of his eyes were almost shut. Another one was pretty much already black as well. So he's wearing a lot of the damage, and definitely when the majority of judges look at all that damage that's being accumulated on the fighter's face, they're going to sway towards the fighter that's causing that damage to begin with, which was Mike Davis. Mike Davis was also able to get a couple of takedowns and deal some ground and pound as well to Mason Jones, but Mason Jones was giving it back to him while he was on his back, so Mason Jones is definitely a fighter to look at. Obviously, he did make his debut against dangerous opponent in Mike Davis, but he will be back in the future. He wasn't just a double champ in Cage Warriors for nothing. This is his first fight in the UFC. He probably had some UFC jitters, but he went out there to kill, and it wasn't his night. Mike Davis, he even said that it's been too long since he's competed in the octagon. He had a lot of rust going into the fight. He shook a little bit of it off, but it's still there, and he's going to have to go back to the drawing board to see what he can do better next time and how we can be able to take less damage. So, but best of luck to both those guys. Obviously, both of them are going different ways, but Mason Jones is definitely a name to look at. The young man coming out of Wales, coming out of the UK, and coming out of Cage Warriors as a double champ in to the UFC, where a lot of Cage Warriors alumni have done very well in the promotion. So, very bright futures for both men. And then the last guy I want to talk about is Umar Nurmagomedov, obviously Khabib Nurmagomedov's cousin, who ended up facing Sergey Morozov. And obviously Umar's leg kicks. First time seeing this guy fight, he's so fast, he's so explosive. His wrestling is just as good as his striking, and I believe his striking's a whole lot better than his cousin's Khabib's. His leg kicks are so fast. I haven't seen leg kicks that fast since Edson Barbosa, and there's the other fighter from the same country as Valentina that fought a couple of weeks ago that defeated Renato Moicano. I believe his name is Rafael Fiziev. Rafael Fiziev, who trains at Tiger Muay Thai and who is a genius at Muay Thai. He's a Muay Thai genius, and he also trains. He's the head Muay Thai coach of the UFC bantamweight champion Peter Yan. So obviously his leg kicks are extremely fast. So is Edson Barbosa's, and so is Umar Nurmagomedov. I believe his leg kicks are on par with both of those fighters, and he's extremely fast. He was able to get some great leg kicks, really rock Sergey, and he was able to get some nice takedowns as well. Sergey was able to get back up because Sergey, obviously, he's another good fighter to look at, a fighter out of Kazakhstan. A lot more fighters coming out of Kazakhstan nowadays, and I can't wait for more fighters to come because you got very great boxers that come out of that region, and now you're going to have more good mixed martial artists coming out of that region as well. So obviously, that was a great fight to watch. Umar, like I said, his speed, his explosiveness, his wrestling, his leg kicks are out of this world. And obviously, he's still green. He's still very green into the UFC. He was trying to go for a finish at a couple of times, and he did fall. He did stumble, and he was taken down for a little bit, but he's able to get back up and really go for that finish. He ended up taking Sergey down, getting him into a little bit of a mount position, and finishing that fight via a rear naked choke. So obviously, Umar Nurmagomedov is the next big thing out of Dagestan. Dagestan is just a region in Russia where a lot of killers are really coming from, a lot of talented young men, a lot of talented athletes, a lot of great wrestlers all in all. So obviously those are the majority of the fighters that I really wanted to talk about coming out of this card. A lot of them, the majority of them are young. Some very well-rounded, experienced veterans in the UFC, but I really wanted to talk about these fighters and performances because I just don't want to always talk about the most popular fighters on the card. We got to talk about some of these overlooked fighters as well and where their futures are also going to take them after their prospective victories after this card and in the near future as well. This is the only beginning of 2021. We've got the rest of the year to go. We've got about 11 more months to go, and a lot of these fighters can really make a lot of noise in their respective divisions. So those are just all the fighters I wanted to talk about. I am going to come out with a brand new video talking about the main event, which is Michael Chiesa versus Neil Magny. It was a very intriguing fight in its own right, and I'm going to come out with more content as we speak since a lot of these other fights are going on. UFC 257 will be going down this Saturday via Abu Dhabi. Here in the East Coast, it's going to start at 10 p.m. with the main card, and then at 7 p.m. over in the West Coast as well. So I appreciate you guys for watching this video. I'm going to put more content out there. And if you guys want me to talk about certain fighters, put more certain content out there with predictions, with previews, with talking about certain fighters, certain individuals, then let me know in the comments section. Like, subscribe, do the whole nine. Appreciate you guys for watching it. God bless, stay safe, and enjoy the rest of your nights.